Hi friends, welcome to Eyes of My Heart. It is a Sunday morning and I wanted to come on here and share my morning devotional with you. This is written by a man by the name of Bob Holmes. I tried to read a poem he wrote a couple weeks ago, and I think one of the videos is on here. And I couldn't find it once I got on here and was looking for it. So I ended up reading something else. And this isn't, I'm going to read something today, and it's not even the original thing, but it's so good. Have you ever found an author who, when you started reading their writings, you were like, oh my gosh, they are somehow digging into the depths of my soul and speaking a language that I could not even find words for. Right now, at this stage in my life, in this part of my pilgrimage, Bob is one of those. And I want to share this with you. And I'll just give you a brief background. He currently, I think, is 75 years old. He had been a pastor, minister in the Christian churches for many, many, many years. And many different denominations. Evangelical, charismatic, I think some holiness, independent. He is a lover of God. But he also has had what I love to call a renovation of the heart, and it is ongoing. And he has begun to find a language to share that. And because it speaks the language of my heart, I'm going to share it here. He also is currently has stage 4 lung cancer. And his precious wife, Elizabeth, she died a couple years ago of cancer. So, he writes from a rawness, from a truth. And I want to share this with you today. I hope it speaks to you. I also think it might speak to people who are pastors and ministers, because I know a lot goes on in your souls that you can't always share with other people. And maybe this will touch you as well. I'm just going to read the Facebook post. So it's on a Facebook post, and he starts out by saying this. Elizabeth called me Jeremiah because I was always crying over the church. Elizabeth was his wife. And Jeremiah is a prophet in the Christian Bible who was known as the weeping prophet because he always seemed to be weeping over how horrible the people of that day were turning away from God. But this is how he starts it. The name of the poem is Breathe in the Dawn. And maybe we can just do that for a second. And I can hear my dog barking. I apologize. I hope it doesn't distract too much. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His tender mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And that is found in Lamentations 3:22. And then he starts his poem. In our restoration, we cease being the experts, the professionals, the ordained, so that we might begin again with God. So we might begin again with God. We thought we had it all together, but God smiles as we fall apart into wholeness that heals us. God's love is new every morning as we begin again, tasting as if for the first time the fragrance of God's presence in the ebb and flow of our lives. Change is the constant on this canvas of life. So as artists, we create with our Creator in this vast choreography of God. Such grace is astounding. I want to read that one more time as kind of a Lectio and stop and reflect as I go along. In our restoration, we cease being the experts, the professionals, the ordained, so that we might begin again with God. This restoration, this renovation, we cease thinking we know that we know everything. We're no longer the experts. We cease being the professionals, the ordained, so that we might begin again with God. If we're not ever beginning again, this all things new, then we might want to stop and reflect as to why. And this part really hit me, this next part. We thought we had it all together, but God smiles as we fall apart into the wholeness that heals us. That is, he found words in my heart and just put them on his page. And I'm reading them right now. I'll read it personally. I thought I had it all together, at least in religiously. But God smiles as we fall apart into the wholeness that heals. Isn't that a paradox? But isn't that what life is? We fall apart into the wholeness. It's when we think and we're trying to hold it all together that we're really the most broken. We fall into the wholeness that heals us. That's going to be my mantra today. God's love is new every morning as we begin again, tasting as if for the first time the fragrance of God's presence in the ebb and flow of our lives. Our life is going to ebb and flow, highs and lows. But in every moment, if we are beginning again and seeing anew, we are going to taste, we are going to inhale that aroma, that fragrance of God that is saturating it all. Change is the constant on this canvas of life. So as artists, we create with our Creator in this vast choreography of God, and such grace is astounding. We create with our Creator. We are co-creators with God. The circumstances of our life do not determine what we paint on this canvas, because we are not controlled by those circumstances. They become part of the choreography. And that speaks to me. When I was young, and people, if they had asked me what I really wanted to be when I grew up, I would never say this in the church because it wasn't allowed. But I wanted to be a dancer. That's what I wanted to be, because I always felt like my body was just flowing with. I used to do gymnastics. And I would turn those into little dances because gymnastics was more acceptable, I guess, as an exercise. But life is just ebbing and flowing, and we are co-creators with whatever is coming in, whatever is going out. We are co-creators with what we are bringing into our life, what we are releasing and letting go of in our life. It is a choreography. Think of it that way. It is like an artist who starts out with these paintings and these brushes and this idea, and suddenly it begins to morph and becomes something perhaps that they never intended it to be. So is the presence of God in our life. It is a dance, a constant. But I love what he says here, change is the constant. This idea of letting go and receiving, of everything becoming new, of beginning again. That's change. I don't know. What does that say to you? We thought we had it all together, but God smiles as we fall apart into the wholeness that heals us. Have you ever thought about falling apart being part of the healing process? And it says we thought we had it all together. Well, I can't say I thought I had it all together. Excuse me, but I thought I knew enough about religion that why wasn't I better? Because I thought I knew everything about my doctrine, my religion, the scriptures, how to interpret them, the things to do, the things not to do. And then I began to fall apart. But it wasn't an external falling apart so much. People would never have known. I went through some situations in my life that were very difficult, but they weren't unusual. I mean, I went through a divorce when I was very young. That was painful. That was definitely a transformational time, but it wasn't unusual. A lot of people go through divorces. But as far as major traumas, I wasn't falling apart by those things. I was falling apart in my own inner landscape of my soul, because what I always thought and what I knew in my head wasn't enough. And I had a relationship with God. I mean, I loved God as best as I knew. But it was limited. It was this, if you live inside a box, you think the box is the universe. When the walls of that box fall down, you are just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had no idea the vastness of God's love. I had no idea the beauty, the mystery, the glory. And you're almost just astounded, and you don't even know if you can move. I mean, friends, there's more. There is more. And it's a beautiful choreography. And the best part about it to me, he says it right here, the grace is astounding. Because when we open to that vastness of love, the grace is there to lead us into the next step, to let us know the next creative move, to dance and to flow in the spirit of that love. It isn't hard. Somehow I grew up thinking being a Christian has got to be hard. It isn't. That was a misconception in my life. You know, have you ever seen dancers who, you know that they've practiced, but when they get out there on that floor, and we'll call it couple dancing, because that amazes me the most. And every step that they've practiced and learned, suddenly they're moving like one on that dance floor. And they are just, it's beautiful to watch. And I think that's how it is with me and has been in my spiritual journey. I have practiced. I have spiritual practices that I've done since I was young. And yeah, sometimes I was missing the mark because they were kind of just routine and rote, and they weren't bringing life to my soul, but I was doing them. And then I had this awakening in my heart. The Spirit of God opening the eyes of my heart. And suddenly I began to see how all of those were coming together. It was part of the choreography, and now I could really dance in the freedom of it. And it was effortless. The love of God abiding in our life, lifting us up, holding us, is effortless because it's no longer me trying to understand and achieve and do. It's whatever the ebb and flow of life is, God is present there. And then the things that I've learned, like to forgive, to not hold grudges, to be grateful, to find something every day to be grateful in, to do acts of kindness, even if you don't feel like it. Suddenly, those are the things that begin to prepare me to step into this flow. And when it's there, once you've seen it, once you've tasted and seen it and touched it, you never want to go back. And I think, why did I spend so much time working so dang hard when it was all grace? A grace that is alive, that moves me to action, that takes off the worry and the anxieties of what other people think, and says just, let God lead, let the Spirit lead, and go where it takes you. That's my desire. I hope this spoke to you today. I'm going to read it one more time because I've done a lot of talking, and I don't want that to be the last thing that stays in your heart. I want you to hear the words of this man. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His tender mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22. In our restoration, we cease being the experts, the professionals, the ordained, so that we might begin again with God. We thought we had it all together, but God smiles as we fall apart into wholeness that heals us. God's love is new every morning as we begin again, tasting as if for the first time the fragrance of God's presence in the ebb and flow of our lives. Change is the constant on the canvas of life. So, as artists, we create with our Creator in this vast choreography of God. God is a vast choreography. Oh, I love that image. And such grace is astounding. Wow, go out and be astounded today by the grace of God, who is this vast choreography of love. Take care. Enjoy your day.